Wow, you should.
There we go.
Okay.
Welcome to the Social Coast. I don't even know what to say about today. Today has been one of those days. So,
Well,
yes.
it's Anita Kirkbride under borrowing her sister's computer. So she's Sherry Tucker there, but it's really Anita in disguise, and me, of course, Tina at LiftComms, and we're just getting started here. We've got everything sorted out. We think we finally are recording. So here we go. So the topic today is storytelling, and it's something that we both spent some time investigating and sitting in on sessions and workshops for last week. It's last week at Social Media Marketing World. And I thought maybe we could start with the session that I know you got a lot of value out of, which was the hero's journey. And that's the video that I just showed beforehand. Yeah, we had a couple audio issues, but the hero's journey is an archetypal story structure.
Well, what I found interesting was, even though I watch movies, I watch shows, I watch ads, I see all this stuff, and I see the patterns. I see, every show they have their climax and something goes wrong, and just when you think nothing's going to go right, it finally turns around and goes right. And I see the patterns between all of these different movies and things, but I didn't realize it was a formal pattern that people would actually sit down and actively try to follow. And so I never really thought about the fact that I could use that pattern or that formula for telling a story related to a business. So it was really eye-opening for me, because it wasn't just, oh yeah, this movie follows the same basic pattern as this movie, or this romance novel follows the same pattern as every other romance novel known to man. It was a big light bulb moment for me, that this is a formula that you can put into practice for any kind of story. So
exactly.
That was really interesting. And then you told me something you knew forever.
Well, only because I've studied story. That's my whole life's been about reading and studying story, deconstructing story, writing about story, before life and social media. But what's fantastic about it for businesses or for anyone is that when you understand and deconstruct story structure, it is something that all of us respond to. All of us respond to the hero's journey. And I guess it's really like Joseph Campbell that kind of unpacked the whole structure of story for the rest of the world in terms that we can all understand. And, I guess the big book was The Hero Has 1,000 Faces, which is exactly what you were saying. Everybody can use this story structure, so you can be really creative within the different ways to use this story structure. But, my question to you is, why do you think every murder mystery starts with a dead body? Why do you think?
Well, I know what he said, and he, for anybody that's interested, is the person that was giving this workshop. His name is Park Howell, and I'll see if I can find a link. He has Twitter and everything. I believe he said that you start where the action is. I don't know. I don't know if I remember the correct answer to that. But yeah, you start where the action is, and then you backfill, and then you go forward.
Exactly. So the thing is, we're always wondering with social media marketing, how do I engage people? How do I get anyone interested and emotionally involved in something? Well, how most really good stories start, whether they're a murder mystery or another kind of story, is in the middle of the action. We get plunged into the middle of the action. And what that does is it creates a whole bunch of curiosity, a huge curiosity gap. So we're wondering, well, what's going on and how can I resolve this? And what's the story here? So, it's goes way beyond just sort of really shallow tactics that have played out completely like clickbait, right? Where you try to get someone to wonder what's next and click on something and then be super disappointed with the content that they arrive at. It takes it to a much deeper level where you are actually unpacking your whole story in a number of ways. So, you know, a business might use this. We'll talk about the story structure a bit, element by element. I thought we could do that and maybe think of some ideas and answer questions or have discussion around how you might use this with your business. But you can even do something as simple as, you know, have 12 different blog posts that you want to do that kind of lay out the journey of your story or your business's story, following this archetypal story structure. So you can do it that way, which is a very simple way to kind of understand it and tackle it. But within each blog post too, you can apply story structure. So you kind of start us somewhere where we're like, well, what's going on here? What's happening? And then we're taken through the story. We figure out, we get some background details. We come to a climax. And then at the end, there's some kind of resolution, some enlightenment, some new information that our readers and ourselves that we kind of come to together. And people love story. It is, so what story theorists say is that it is actually part of our DNA. You know, before we lived in literate societies, where most of us in the Western world anyway, read and write on a daily basis at some level, all societies were oral societies and had an oral literacy. So we were all storytellers. That was how we passed along information and learning. That was how we passed along really valuable cultural traditions and history. It was always an oral history and oral stories. So story structure and story itself became a really embedded part of our DNA as a human race. And it's something that all cultures share. So it's like, if you're wondering how to engage people, looking deeper into story is a really great way to do it. So where would you like to start with this, Anita?
I'm not really sure where to start because I haven't had time to digest all of the resources that he gave us in that workshop. So he gave us that video that you showed, which was a really fun video that explains the hero's journey. But we also had, he gave us all a workbook, and he walked us through each step of the hero's journey for ourselves and helped us figure out how to create our own story, which was really interesting. I thought what we could maybe do, I don't know if you want to walk through the stages very quickly maybe, and then maybe we can pick a fictional company and build a story for it. I don't know if that would be helpful to people, because it was helpful to me to see how to, one of the women that got up and spoke after we did our little booklet, he took 2 people up on stage, and one woman took this story structure and she basically wrote herself a little ad or a little video that would perfectly explain her business through the story structure. So I think it's really helpful to see how that can happen, because when he gave us this book and he said, now here, start writing your story, I was thinking my story. I wasn't thinking my business story or how I could use this for business until this other woman got up on stage and totally turned it around and used it to build her business story. So I think that was a big stumbling block for me, trying to figure out how to tell a story that was brand related. So that might be helpful for other people if we pick some kind of, I don't know, a pizza company or something and build a story around it.
Okay, well, let's unpack it a bit. Let's go through, all right, so say yes in the comments if it would be unhelpful, or if it would be not unhelpful, if it would be helpful for us to go through each of the elements of the story structure in order, bit by bit. Yes, helpful. Okay.
I forgot to grab one resource, so I'm just going to run and grab it while you start.
Okay. All right, so let's get started. So the first element of story, which is going to be super obvious, is to establish the setting. So in your business story, you know, it is about where have you been? What got you to this point? And then it's about where are you now and where are you headed? But in establishing the setting, you want to do that really briefly. And in all my years of being super interested and engaged in story and storytelling, the one underlying most effective principle in all storytelling is to show, not tell, right? So as we're going along, think about how you can show this. So you want to give the setting of your story. So even if it's something as simple as you are creating a 60-second video for Instagram, you're going to show us a little story about something, and you're going to add the element of setting just visually, right? You're just going to show us something.
Except you probably can't read this because it's backwards.
Where in the world? Yeah, no, it's perfect. It actually reads correctly.
Okay.
So where in the world have you been? That's where we start with the setting. All right, so I think the best way to do that is just in a line, if you're going to write it out, or visually, if you're going to show us a graphic or do a video. Just establish that by showing us. Okay, any other further thoughts on that one, Anita, from the workshop?
No, that was... The whole thing is figuring out what to put where. So if I was to show the story that I wrote, which is really all in bullet form, I've got things, this is a different one. I put things in, scratch them out, because then come along to another page and it fits better somewhere else.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Yeah, so things got moved around. So I would think it was just figuring out how far back to go.
Yeah.
How much do you put in the backstory?
Yeah. And how much do you need, right? So setting, I think, make it really brief or just visual. Just give us a sense of where you are and where you're headed and how you can do that visually. What is it? 60,000 information that is given visually is processed by our brains 60,000 times faster than anything that we put in writing that gets read. So always keep the visual in mind, especially for social media. Okay, after that, you're going to introduce the hero. So who's the hero of your business story or your brand? It's probably you. Okay, don't panic. Don't run away.
Well, but that was one of the aha moments for me, was when I was writing my story in this book, I was thinking the hero was me. But if you're a brand, the hero is your customer. You want your customer, your ideal client, to feel like they are the hero because they made the right decision.
Awesome.
So that was where the difference was between me telling my personal story in this little book and the woman who got up and told a story about her business, because she made her customer the hero.
Okay, so say more about that. So then what are your thoughts on how you cast your ideal customer as the hero in your story?
Well, I think that's one of the hardest parts of any business, is figuring out who your ideal customer is. I mean, how many times have you talked to a real estate agent and say, well, what's your focus? Well, I sell to anybody. Anybody that needs a house, that's who I sell to. And they're not. So a lot of businesses, I don't want to pick on real estate agents, but a lot of businesses think that way. I'll sell to anybody that's willing to buy. Right. But the more you can focus on, my customer is a young mother that's aged 24 to 35 that has 2.5 kids and a dog and a cat and 5 fish. They drive a minivan. They shop at Costco. They whatever. The more you can fill out your customer, the more you know what that hero is going to look like in your video or in your story. Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff you need to know. And I know I struggle with that. And I know lots of businesses struggle with all of those little details about their customer.
Okay, so let's say that we have a solid idea of who our ideal customer is. So how do we proceed? So one of the things that you can do is, if you think about even Facebook advertising and how you can choose a lookalike audience, if you think about the story you're telling in terms of the hero being your ideal customer, but all the readers, you want to attract lookalike ideal customers, right? So in story, how you make a hero likable, and how we engage with the hero of the story versus the villain or the the anti-hero or the foil, is that they are sympathetic to us. We relate to them. They're human. We even relate to their faults and weaknesses, right? So if you run a chocolate business and someone's going in to buy that Friday night chocolate and they're feeling a bit of guilty pleasure about that, it's okay, because we all feel that if we're chocolate lovers. So it's like allowing that hero in your story, if it's your ideal customer, to be really sympathetic to the audience. So we relate to them. They have a vulnerability that we can see. They're authentic, right? I don't send a 98-pound, supermodel in to buy a giant box of chocolates on a Friday night. That's going to just really irk us. Okay. So be authentic. And when the character is authentic and likable and relatable and human, that big, the final thought we were all sent away with from the conference, be human. When they are that way, we trust them. They're trustworthy. Yeah. So we've created a trustworthy, relatable, likable hero in the story that we're telling in our brand. So I love this idea that you posed about using our ideal client, or one of our ideal clients from our different market segments in the story, and think about them as as representative of the readers that we want to attract, or of the viewers or audience that we want to relate to. Okay.
I mean, if you think about a big brand like Cheerios, for example, they're one that comes to mind. They have ads. They might have the same basic ad, a family sitting around a table eating Cheerios for breakfast, but they're making different heroes out of their different ideal clients by having different types of families and different situations at that breakfast table. Yeah. So I think it was Cheerios that not too long ago had a gay family, had two fathers sitting at the table. They have had an interracial family sitting at the table. They've had an overwhelmed young mother sitting at the table with kids throwing the Cheerios at her. So they're telling the same basic story. Cheerios is part of your healthy breakfast when you're a young family, but they're telling it in different contexts by making different heroes in those ads.
I think you just found a tagline for a new campaign for Cheerios. What's your story-o?
What's your story-o?
Okay, good. So let's move on to, we just talked about introducing the hero. So what's at stake? What's at stake for the hero? And what's motivating the hero? What drives them? So in this story that you're telling for your brand or for your own business, there has to be that element in marketing of desire. So what's fueling the desire? Desire is what drives people through to a sale, right? They want it. They want to buy that. They want to be a part of that. They want to try that thing, whatever it is, right? So if you understand what's at stake in the story, you have to represent that somehow in the telling of the story as well.
So what do you think some of the things are that can be at stake? I mean, for me, it was happiness, quite very, very broad, but that was my personal story. For the woman that got on stage, it was independence. It was about an older person who had been left. She was living alone because all of her family had gone or died, and she was living alone, and she was regaining her independence. So that was it. Sometimes it's FOMO. Sometimes it's wanting to be part of the crowd, right? Yeah. You just got to have the new iPhone so you can be part of the crowd. So what are some of the other things that could be what's at stake?
I think you go to the product or service and you think about your ideal client and why do they want it? What's at stake for them? And it might be something like being part of the in crowd. It might be something related to health or independence. For me, what's at stake in owning my own business is freedom. It's partly independence, but a greater idea of freedom. I want to work for myself. I want to have my own thoughts. I want to direct the own course of my life, right? I want to work at 3 a.m. sometimes, and I want to have a nap at 3 p.m. sometimes.
I've noticed you tweeting at 3 a.m. lately.
So, but I enjoy that, right? Because I want to work when I'm inspired to work. And in addition to the deadlines, that doesn't always fall in a 9-to-5 framework. And being a mom who works, it definitely doesn't always fall into that framework. So the freedom is, what's at stake for me. So when I'm talking to business owners who want social media services or assistance or help or coaching, they all relate to that at some level as well. They have other things that motivate them, but everybody wants to do things more efficiently and have more time and do things with more facilities so that they get better results. Like, okay, I'm now doing this better. People are engaging with it more because what I'm putting out is better, or I'm doing this more consistently. And based on the emails I'm getting, I know people are seeing my content, even though they're not directly engaging with that content all the time. I'm getting feedback that all of my effort is giving me more freedom. So I can do less. I can do less worrying about buying ads or doing this or that because I'm getting results from this. So it just depends. You have to identify for your own business if you're an entrepreneur, or for your brand if you're working for a brand. What
problem do you solve?
Yeah, what problem do you solve? What pain points do you address? What's at stake for your clients or customers that that care about? And that is definitely at the core of the story.
Yeah.
For marketing, it's probably one of the main things. Okay, yeah. Call to adventure, an inciting incident. So if we go back to our murder mystery, oh no, there's a dead body and Agatha Christie's on the scene. So the inciting incident is the dead body, right? There's a big problem to solve. If you're telling a story, I think that you should try to build something like that into it as well. So one thing I took away from the Michael Port workshop, Michael Port's an actor, but he's probably known more as really a masterful speaker. And one of the things he told us not to say when we're presenting, there were a number of things, but one of them was, don't say, okay, I'm going to tell you a story. It was more of this show, don't tell. So don't say, okay, I'm going to tell you this story. Just launch into your story and launch in with an inciting incident. What's the call to action? What happened that upset the apple cart? What happened that is now the reason this story is about to unfold? Mm-hmm. So that it takes some creative thinking sometimes to work it into the story. But if you're wondering where to start, that's a great place to start.
If I think back to the Cheerios example again, I don't know where Cheerios came from. I don't eat Cheerios. I don't have any Cheerios in the house. I don't watch TV, so I don't see Cheerios ads anymore. But for some reason, these ads are sticking with me today. If I think to the Cheerios example, there was one ad in particular where the dad is going on a business trip and he gets to his business destination and he opens up his briefcase and there's Cheerios in it and a note from his daughter saying, implying take care of your heart or something like that. I forget what the note says, but because clearly he has had heart issues and she's his daughter and she loves him and she's 4 years old. So she threw Cheerios in his briefcase for him. No milk, just dry Cheerios. So, the inciting incident in that case, I think was a little bit behind the scenes, but it was still very clear to us that even at 4 or 5 years old, this little girl knew Daddy had heart or cholesterol or whatever issues, and Cheerios were good for him.
Yeah. And that's a great point. You can just have the inciting incident understood. It can be something that you understand at the end of the story.
Or it can be your toddler throwing a bowl of Cheerios at you.
Exactly. Okay. So any last thoughts on call to adventure or the inciting incident in the story?
No, but it says here in the little booklet, define that moment that propelled you into action. And I think that's a really good way to look at it. Yeah. It's really easy to see them when you start looking piece by piece, when you start looking at videos and ads and stories and movies. It's really easy to pick these out. So I think once you have the list and you're trying to build your own story, if you start looking for these little bits in things that you're watching, it will start to become more clear. Although, sitting here we've been talking about this for, half an hour already. It makes you wonder how they fit it all into a 30-second commercial.
Well, which is why it's show, don't tell, right? Sometimes it's the tiniest little visual that comes up at the right moment. That is one whole story element.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the next thing then is, what are the obstacles or the antagonists? So the people or things that get in the way of your hero's journey. You can see this in so many commercials. So you've got your ideal customer, they're, doing something, they're involved in the story, and something happens. That's an obstacle, or that kind of stops them in their tracks or reroutes them on the way. So what's the value of putting an obstacle or an antagonist in the story?
You can't be a hero unless you overcome something. So in order to make your customer feel that hero brand, that hero feeling, they have to overcome something. It could be as small as cleaning up the Cheerios mess, or it could be as big as overcoming heart disease or reducing your heart risk, or so many things. Again, I'm just stuck on Cheerios today. But
well, even in a laundry detergent commercial, I'm thinking, it's just that moment, the blueberries splat all over, the white dress. That's
exactly.
the obstacle as you're out, as you're on your way out the door. So the obstacle is just something like that, but it's the reason that we need to have these moments that are building to a climax or a resolution in the story is that otherwise it's just all flatlined and it's not interesting. So you want to give us obstacles to get through with the character, with the hero, with that person we're identifying with, the other ideal client that we feel like we relate to. So you're taking us on the journey with them. So what's going on underneath all this, and the reason why so many of us love to read book series, is we start to feel emotionally invested in the character. We want to find out about their next adventure, their next story. That's why a lot of brands use commercials with the same characters over and over again quite often. We get invested in the story. It's why we love YouTube channels of our favorite people. We get invested in the character. We start to feel like we know them. We feel like we relate to them. And emotion is what drives everything, right? So if you can create a sympathetic character, or who we're calling the hero, but a sympathetic character in your story, whether it's you or, some other story your brand is developing, then you've got it made. Like, we're all human. We just want to relate to that ideal or that like-minded or similar character on the road.
Right.
Okay. So mentors. This might not be a part of every story that brands tell, but I think if you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, this is an important part of the journey.
Yeah. Who was it that inspired you to take off and start your own business, for example? Or in your laundry commercial, when you said that, and I'm looking at Enter the Mentor here, I'm thinking immediately it's mom in the back of my mind saying, don't forget to use your Tide stick. Or, my mother would never actually say that, but that could be your video, the mentor, the mom that's telling you how to fix the problem.
Exactly. What a great example. Yeah. And, the other way that some entrepreneurs use this is they collaborate with their mentors in their social media marketing as part of their content. They might, they might do an interview with them. They might do a co-presentation with them and then do some social media content around that. There are so many ways that you can align yourself with and show gratitude toward and connection with your mentors. And, all in the name of being on the journey, learning things as you go, getting better at what you do. All of that builds trust. All of that builds relatability, because we're all on a journey. None of us know everything, and none of us will ever know everything, not even about our own industries. There are always new things to learn and know. So you might not use that in every story for a brand, but I think if you're a smaller business, It's something that's really important. And even I'm thinking in terms of engaging on social media, it's so important to still businesses, a lot of businesses forget this, but it's so important to actively engage yourself with your mentors, other businesses that you want to support for any reason. You like what they do, you live near them, you're part of the same community, they're a mentor, they're a service that you use or like, they're a business that is or has been a client or customer of yours. Whatever the reason is, it's really important to build those connections on social media. So I think that part of the story reminds us of that too. And so many businesses sit back, wait for the engagement and interactions to come in, but don't go out and actively engage. Although I see Kara O'Coin's here today, if she's still listening, she's really good at this. She does a ton of interaction. And it's, well, yeah, and it's really noticeable and it's great. So I think more businesses should do that. And here's the thing that I think is so clever about what Kara's doing. And I think she's probably doing it strategically too, because I would be if I were doing this as actively. Every time you interact with someone and engage with them, it boosts your visibility with that brand, with that person, with that member of your community. It's like, oh, there's your name again. Oh, there she is again. Oh, there he is again, supporting me again. That's fantastic. This is something Adam does really well. Also with his mentors and with his sort of like community partners almost, or people just that he aligns the values of his business at Caring Counts with, he actively engages. And you know when you're part of Adam's community because he is actively engaging with you all of the time. So again, that's part of Enter the Mentor, or just, you know, engage and connect with your community. It's very similar process in the storytelling, how you help one another.
Absolutely. Okay, the road of trials is next. So I like to think of this as the roller coaster part of the story. This is the ups and downs, the tests and the successes and failures, and all of the little things that that you have to endure to get the hero through to a victory.
Yeah. So different for every business, different for every business story. And for me, this is really similar to, what did we call it before? The antagonists and obstacles. These might be more like actual things that happen along the way, rather than being people or obstacles that stop you. These are things that happen on the road that take you off course. Like, for example, I was sitting in on a seminar weeks ago with Subi Zimmerman, and she was talking about how her technology blew up 25 minutes before the start of the webinar, right? So this was all coming through on email, this quick explanation. Okay, everything just blew up. We have to give you a new link. But the thing is, it was super engaging because it was all part of the story. So it's like, oh, now I'm really interested to sit in, because I'm thinking about attending the webinar, but you know, if you're busy, you're still a maybe. And then I thought, I'm sitting in for sure, because I love how human this is, that I'm getting a play-by-play of how things broke down, the reason behind me getting a new link, not just an email saying, oh, by the way, we're shooting you a new link, with no explanation. It was like, well, everything blew up. So we had to do this, and here's the new link. Please join us. We're so sorry, but we've got it all sorted out, right? So,
and there's that being human again, right? Not being afraid to show that, yeah, even Sue Zimmerman has technology blow-ups. It happens to all of us.
Exactly.
Being human.
Okay, and then victory is at hand. So when you finally get there, you finally start to see some of the successes that you have had planned all along, things that you've had in your sightlines as your goals. So you start to get there. So Anita, what do you think about this element of the story?
Oh, well, that was tough for me, figuring out where the trials ended and where the successes started. That was, you know, there's some scratching out happening here too. Um, yeah, I don't know. Don't think I have anything to add to that, but this is where everything starts to turn around for your hero. Things start to go the right way, I guess.
I'm trying to think of the commercial that I have in mind, but it's almost like someone chasing down an ice cream cone in the heat of the summer, and there's all these obstacles in the way. I don't know if I dreamt this or if it's a real commercial, but they're dodging through traffic and over fences and sweating, and it's sweltering, and then they make it to the ice cream bike before it cycles away, and they get their ice cream. Something like that. Well, the moment of victory, it's like, that moment, that aha moment. That's how you can show it with an action in a simple commercial, but really in a business, and especially in an entrepreneurial business, it's when you realize, okay, I've achieved this. I still have other goals. You always have other goals, but I have achieved this thing. So why not celebrate that achievement? Because your audience has been relating to your journey all the way along. And now at this point, they're like, oh, they start to unpack those things too. Have I also achieved this? Oh, I've also achieved that. Sometimes when I read blogs, I have this experience really vividly. I think, oh, I haven't given myself credit for any of the things they're talking about, but I went through similar obstacles and struggles. And I've achieved those things too. And look, they're celebrating that. And I should celebrate that. And that makes me really relate to that blogger. And it also kind of uplifts and empowers me as their reader, as their audience. So it gives a lot of value. So you get a connection and you get a lot of value as the audience.
Great. Okay, so the last one is the moral of the story. Reveal the universal truth found in your story.
Right.
What is the moral of your story?
I think
Tide liquid detergent.
Yeah. For a commercial, that's what it is, right? Save yourself strife, do it the right the first way, or whatever, use a stain preventing detergent because you have little kids, or whatever the moral of the story is.
Eat Cheerios to prevent heart disease.
Right. Yeah. And in advertising content, it is going to be something like that. In the story of a brand, when you're blogging about something, or you're telling a story in a different way, where you're trying to reach people over a period of time and get them to know you and understand and trust where you're coming from and how you can work together, then I think once you get to the point where it's like the moral of the story, it's important to understand that it's not meant to be moral, like in any religious sense or in any particular sense. It's just like, what is the lesson learned, or what is the final sticking point here? The universal truth that I can now apply to other things. Mm-hmm. So if you're telling the story of your brand, it's like, how can I take this thing, this conclusion, this resolution at the end of the story, and move forward with it to help me on my next journey? So it's something that transcends the story. I think it's something, what's universal about it is it's something you take with you to the next story, mm-hmm. or in your life, or in your business journey, or in your business growth. So what's the thing that you take with you to the next story? And in the case of learning social media, for my clients or customers, it might be a strategy that you get to by the end. It's like, okay, this strategy worked for this campaign or this story or this task, but I'm going to take this with me. So I understand that this whole process works the way that it works, and you can take that forward. So mm-hmm. sometimes the moral of the story is a process works really well, and this process works really well, at least for now. Sometimes the moral of your story is something more personal and something that's more of an interaction with your audience. So, a lot of business coaches will go back to your personal growth, So what's the moral of the story at the end as it relates to you, as a client, as a business person, as someone moving forward in your life? So if I think back to all the workshops, retreats, sessions, conferences, various things I've done throughout my life, there are so many takeaways. Those are the takeaways that are universal, that you can apply to your life, back in your life, that you can take out of that story and bring along with you. So, I don't know. I think the most successful brands give you more than just a buy this now and it'll save you grief. I think they give you a deeper emotional connection with it. Like, this is something that, here's a good example. Have you seen I know you don't have cable, but have you seen any of the commercials recently that Tim Hortons, which is a coffee company up here in Canada, is doing with the Tim's cups that are being saved over generations? And the family signs the Tim's cup, dates it, and puts the memory on the cup, like Joey's first hockey game, Bill and June's wedding, 1998 or whatever. Have you seen that commercial?
No, I haven't. I'm going to go look for it on YouTube and see if I can find it.
So what's great about it is, a family is going through their garage and they've just sold their house and they're kind of packing things up, and they come across this dusty old cardboard box full of coffee cups from Tim Hortons, and each of them has a date and an event on it and is signed. And so I guess the moral of that story is, I don't know, like you can save your memories, but the bigger moral of the story is your family is important. Your memories with your family are important. They're worth cataloging in some way. Yeah. It's worth connecting with each other over and over again. Family time is essential because the grandparents are coming to visit. They're finishing up their Tim Hortons as they walk up the driveway, and then they sign off on this coffee cup, right? And they're like, we've got one more to add to the box. So it's this whole idea of almost scrapbooking your memories with coffee cups and the information on the coffee cups. But the moral of the story, or what you're left with, is a value, and it's an emotional. It's a really emotional catch, like all about family and valuing family and cataloging it in some way. Yeah, it's a commercial.
Yeah. Okay, so let's, we got started a little bit late, so we're just at 2:00 here, but let's take a few minutes to absolutely on the fly concoct something that follows these, or at least talk about ways that we could follow these for a brand story.
Okay, who wants to come in and concoct with us? We're going to concoct a story. We're going to collaborate. It's going to be completely on the fly, and all ideas are good ideas because it's just brainstorming. Who wants to try? Come on in, Kara. Come on in, Ravi.
Nobody wants to come in and concoct a story with us?
Who else? We got
we need some suggestions. What brand are we working for? Who are we working for here?
Right,
who are we going to?
Hi, Ravi. Good to have you in.
I'll be the token male.
Hi, Ravi.
All right, Ravi, we're just going to see if someone else wants to come in. Kara, do you want to come in? Elliot, are you still here? Do you want to come in? What about Diane? No. Diane's been here the whole time. Okay. If anyone else wants to join us as we go along, please come on in. All right, Ravi.
Howdy.
Let's go for it. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Love your presentation. It really sinks in with some other stuff that I've been doing, and I love you tied the mythology and the hero's journey into it, because we're wired for that.
That's
great. You're a pretty good storyteller yourself, though, Ravi.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of parallels from speaking, right? I do a lot of speaking as well. So we always work to tie in those the mythological structure into the stories.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm working on a new speech, and I'm keeping all of this stuff in mind as I do it. Yeah, for sure. Very important. Okay, so we need to come up with a brand that means nothing to any of us so that we can concoct a story on the fly.
T-shirt company.
A T-shirt company. A t-shirt company.
Why not
All right.
pick that PEI one? What's it? The the mud shirts. They make it with the red mud.
I don't even know it, but sure.
Like they
Tell
dye
us a
it
bit
with
about
the
it for a
red
sec.
mud, I guess that's in PEI. So it's like a mud shirt.
Oh,
Okay.
You can buy
Mud dyed
take a
shirt.
little bit of PEI mud home
Sounds
with you, I guess.
hyper-local.
You know that PEI's got the red dirt, right? So
Yeah.
they've got those mud dyed shirts there.
Oh, funny. I don't think I've heard of those. Okay, so we're going to talk about mud dyed shirts.
All right. So who's our hero? Is it teenagers? Is it older people? Kids? Who's our hero? Our ideal customer?
I don't know. It'd probably be teens or 20s, I would guess, for those shirts. Yeah.
I would think.
Young
I
adult.
don't know though. I can see lots of older tourists going through there and buying mud shirts to take home too, though.
Okay, so pick a lane.
Let's just pick one.
Yeah, we have to pick one. Let's go with teenagers.
Okay.
Millennials, the ever-present
Okay, 20
millennials.
somethings.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the age group. All right, so the backstory.
There's a hyper local kind of aspect to it, right? So it's the earth, it's your own, the ground you were born on, the ground you walk on, you're wearing it, that sort of
It's
thing.
back to the eco
I'm hearing
stuff that they're...
Stompin' Tom. I hear Stompin' Tom singing Bud the Spud from the Bright Red Mud. That's the backdrop for this video.
And Ravi, you were saying?
Well, they like all the eco stuff, right? The back to earth, and that's big for millennials. So
Yeah,
down-home,
right.
natural, not artificial dyes and all this sort of stuff.
Awesome. All the hashtag hippie stuff on Instagram is that market for sure. Yep.
organic cotton maybe, and locally made, locally produced.
So what's at stake is saving the earth one t-shirt at a time. getting closer to nature.
Taking back a piece of the island with them.
Yeah,
Oh.
creating memories. It could
Take
just
one
be
with you.
creating memories. Similar to the Tim Hortons thing, it's all about a way of remembering a special time in PEI where you rolled around in the mud, maybe.
Yeah.
Wow, this could be great with the Mud Hero event. There could be a real
God.
co-sponsored collaboration with Mud Hero.
That could be neat. Create your own mud shirt.
Create your own mud shirt.
That's funny. Yeah.
Okay.
So the call to adventure.
A white t-shirt is the call to adventure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And maybe
Actually, I totally see this now. The millennial tourists, they're on their first road trip of the summer after university lets out, or their first vacation from their first job. They're all wearing jeans and these bright, shiny new white sneakers and white t-shirts, just because. And they go have an adventure in PEI. They're adventuring. They're out on four-wheelers and they're on the beaches and they're rock climbing and they're doing whatever. And when they're done...
We're doing the Mud Hero. Like, have a special Mud Hero on the island.
Yeah, we're doing Mud Hero. Eating cow's ice cream. Visiting Anne of Green Gables. They're doing all this stuff. And the whole while, their shirt is getting redder and redder and redder.
Oh, I love it.
Earthier as they go.
Yeah, absolutely. So the villains, the fogs, the crevices.
Well, I think if you're going to do an adventure like that, you have all of the obstacles and even the road of trials built right into that adventure. That your little team of heroes, I think it's going to be a whole small group of people, of friends probably, are on an adventure. So everything they encounter is going to be another twist in the road, right? That's
an adventure, but I'm thinking if you're thinking of a challenge or a block, what if the block is the same old boring vacation that you just do the touristy stuff? And you want to avoid that. So, you do go this and you don't really remember what you did the week later.
Yeah. And I can almost see them, they've got their white shirts at first and the first thing they do is maybe four-wheeling through the woods.
Yeah.
PEI or whatever. And they come out and they've got one tiny little splash on their white shirt and they're trying to rub it off and wash it off and it doesn't come out. And then they go on a more adventurous thing and they get more dirt and they're constantly trying to fix it, but it's not working.
Oh,
Or if the obstacle, I'm just thinking if their obstacle is a boring vacation with the family and they're teenagers, that's a very common obstacle. Maybe you have like 2 or 3 teens there, like they brought their friends along or something, and they keep getting waylaid from the real vacation because they're doing things like they're at the museum, they're about to go in, and one of them slings a bunch of mud at the other one just to spice things up. So it could be just...
Uh-oh, Tina froze. Oh no. That's not an attractive freezing face either. Just a second.
That they're...
Yeah, so, okay, so who's the mentor?
Well, and also they've got a ropes course and a zip line there. What if you could like create a zip line that actually lets you slide right through a mud puddle? Bottom.
Oh. Yeah.
Awesome. So there's all kinds of great fun stuff that they could do that teenagers would love. So the target market is into this, I'm thinking.
So who's the mentor in this situation? Is it maybe it's a tour guide? I don't know, a tour guide, or the cousin who lives in PEI.
Or what if the T-shirt had a map of all these places to dirty yourself on the back? There's your mentor.
Dirty.
Yeah. So
the mentor is the map. The map is the mentor. Go on the adventure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I love that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just implied.
Okay. And the road of trials, we already talked about that. It's, you know, all the different adventures. So it would be built throughout. So we did the road of trials. Victory is at hand. So what is the victory and the moral of the story? What's the victory here?
I think it's that satisfied, muddy, just like head to toe, messed up from the vacation, satisfaction, sitting around a bonfire doing something, you know, Cavendish Beach or something very PEI oriented. And there you are at the end of the adventure, fully satiated, just and like
every time you wear that shirt, you're back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're sitting there and nobody cares about the dirt on their white shirt and their white sneakers and their face and their hair. They're just there and having fun, taking selfies and posting pictures and remembering, creating the memory.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I like the selfies and posting things because that's a way to just feature the shirts at the end and the maps on the back and all of the final product, right, of the adventure.
Yeah.
Well, and that could create the whole social thing of building it.
Exactly. And then the very last scene, #dirty yourself.
Get down and dirty.
I'm so annoyed we don't get to do this now.
I know, that's fun. This is what advertising agencies do, right? They sit around and do this.
You have to start a t-shirt company.
There you go.
I don't know. Do you know anybody that has a t-shirt company? I don't think I know anybody that has a good t-shirt.
It doesn't have to be PEI. Have you ever done the tidal bore rafting? Because they include sliding in the mud as part of it. The tidal bore rafting.
You know what? I think Mud Hero, because that's become such a big thing that people do. I think Mud Hero could build a whole campaign around this, where it's be your own hero, be your own mud hero.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was fun.
Thanks, ladies.
That was fun. Brainstorming that story together.
And you too.
Ravi, where are you?
I'm in Bedford.
You're in Bedford?
Yes.
We're in Bedford.
Old Bedford, not Larry Utek.
Oh. Okay.
So I'm sorry, Tina. I thought you knew Ravi.
I do not.
And how come you're Carrie now? I thought you were Nita.
I am. I had technical issues and my computer needed to be rebooted. It was faster for me to borrow Sherry's computer than to my computer.
That's awesome. Well, I think we came up with an awesome campaign.
Yeah, well,
At least
I think
Anita and I have been trying to get together for coffees for ages. Maybe with three of us should get together and do some little brainstorming.
maybe we should. Maybe somebody should hire us to start telling their own stories like that,
Yeah.
making stories like that.
Ravi, what do you do?
I'm a consultant. I work with organizations and people on building strategy and everything on purpose, right? How do you build a strategy from purpose, not find motivation later?
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
It's a
cool.
blast.
Okay.
Love it. Well, I'm so glad.
That was
I got to give you some, everybody who's here, give Ravi. He was
Thanks.
brave enough. He was brave enough to come in and join us. And that was so fantastic. I can't believe we came up with something that good.
I know.
could make it
I think
happen.
that was awesome. So, Ravi, are you still doing your blab on a regular basis?
Yeah, I dropped off the last couple of weeks just because I had a lot of stuff happening, but it should be starting again next week. So that
Okay, because you've had some really interesting guests as well.
yeah, it would actually be on right now. It's at 2:00 normally on Fridays, but I've got it going again next week. Started up again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, everybody should go follow Ravi and check out his blabs as well.
Thank you.
And I think that's a great way to end today on creating that story for Mudshirts PEI.
Thanks, ladies.
Thanks, Ravi. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to
you.
everybody else who tuned in today to listen to us talk about how to tell a story from a brand perspective, whether it's your personal story, the story of how your business started and is growing, or whether it's the story of an ad or a video aimed at certain people, your target market.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff here, and when I get this embedded into my blog, I will put up links to some of the other resources that Park Howell gave us in that workshop. There were some other videos. There was a great website called 5 Second Stories, which,
Awesome.
believe it or not, fit a lot of these elements into 5 seconds.
Amazing.
And they're hilarious little videos. So there's some interesting stuff there. So I'll put all of that on my website at twerk.ca as soon as I can get this embedded, but it's going to be different because it's going to go to Sherry, not to me. So I'll have to work around that.
And
So hopefully everybody will join us again next week.
Yep.
We don't have a topic for next week yet. So if you've got topic suggestions for us, please let us know what you'd like us to talk about.
absolutely. And this was one of my topics that I really focused on during Social Media Marketing World. And I'm going to be blogging about this at liftcommunication.com over the coming weeks and months, really. How to use storytelling as part of your business and as part of building your brand, and even, I don't know, being more social and being more engaging with your content online. So,
And before we go, I want to put this on record too. There's a great lawyer here locally. Her name is Corinne Boudreau. Her law firm is Two Certainties Law, I think.
Yep.
And she actually, it didn't occur to me until we were talking about it, but she sends her newsletter out monthly, and it is a story. It's an ongoing story of Karen, the business owner,
Yeah.
and all of the trials and tribulations that Karen has to go through as she runs her business.
Yeah.
From a legal perspective, but she's really built this persona around Karen and Karen's husband and Karen's kids and how they interact with the business and selling and bringing a partner and all of these things.
yeah.
So if you want to see how you can use storytelling to over a longer period of time, you can look at A&W ads who have the same character over and over and over. Or if you want to support a small local business, go find Two Certainties Law and sign up for her newsletter, because it comes out every month with a new chapter about Karen and her business adventures.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool way to do a newsletter. I don't think most people do it that way.
Yeah, that's great. I agree. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye. Thank you for joining us.
Bye, Anita.